are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well, George, and thank you. And I really appreciate Rana's effort in trying to educate folks in Guatemala on environment and science and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much, Willie, for your time. Uh, first of all, we would like to know what is your backgrounds and what is your basically your specialization about climate change, Willie.
Okay. Well, I'm a scientist of all tastes, which means I like so many different areas of science. But my main area is in solar physics and stellar physics, which means we study the sun and the stars. The ideas for the star is basically to try to learn about those group of stars that has the same property like our sun so that we can learn a lot faster about our own sun. Because no federal agency will fund a research, like say wanted to observe the sun for let's say 10,000 years. Probably that we can learn a bit from the Aztec and all this Mayan culture, but we won't be able to get funding support for that. So we have to learn something from the stars. So my main area is basically about how the sun affect the climate system.
Okay. Okay, great. That's a very tough scientific issue. I think I have reading about in some reports of the IPCC. This kind of topic um, has been avoided or not avoided enough. So, what do you think about this main issue in the climate change scientific approach? It doesn't has the importance that you can see.
Oh yes, I mean I have very strong criticism for IPCC for sure. I have to give a bit of a background. I have been researching this topic. Actually, you can say 24 hours. Scientists never sleep for close to 25 years now. And indeed, I've been spending all this time trying to understand. Actually, first of all, I started with the background of learning about the sun. Then, immediately, the question is to ask how can the sun affect the climate system? So, we study the climate system. And as we all know, that most people are claiming that human activities, the industrial activity, has been emitting too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. In the beginning, I was also a bit concerned.
Okay.
So I started from that background, and then I started researching more and more about the topic, about the scientific effects of basically atmospheric carbon dioxide, as well as let's say how the climate actually change and function. Then I come to a really strong and clear scientific conclusion, and I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago, that this rising of atmospheric carbon dioxide, instead of being what you call prosecuted, to be some sort of villain between the bad guys, like basically harming human environment and so on and so forth, that we should actually promote more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The bottom line is that plants and, in fact, sea animals, they all love carbon dioxide. The more carbon dioxide we have, the better it is. So that's point number one.
Yeah.
Point number two is that then we ask the question, how much can this carbon dioxide affect the weather and climate? Which means, does it really cause more hurricane? Does it cause more tropical cyclone? Or does it cause actually extinction, possible extinction of polar bear in the north? I have to tell you that there's simply no scientific evidence for that. And then we come back to basically understand what actually drives the climate change that we know, that we can learn, basically, even from the mountaintops in Guatemala, for example. I mean, you know that the coldest time is in your area, let's say the last thousand years, is actually around the 100 years between 1660 to 1760. That is a period that is known about the sun is called a period of Maunder minimum. That means the sun's activity was very weak at that time. Yeah. And guess what happened? It's the coldest time in the last 1,000 years in Guatemala. At your mountaintop, you have your glaciers growing to the maximum size. I mean, you have your general elevation is the highest point, ice cap is about 3,500 meters, let's say. Those ice were growing so large that they actually go down to the valley, the glaciers actually down to 2,000 meters maybe. Okay? In the coldest time, let's say last glacial maximum 21,000 years ago, this thing went all the way down to 1,000 meters actually. Yeah. Which means it makes life very difficult actually. Guatemala City is about 1,500 meters. Just imagine that this ice is coming to your house. I mean, Do you prefer cold places with all these glaciers, or do you prefer a livable environment, which means warm environment, relatively warm, of course, not too excessively warm, and that's what we're supposed to call for. But it's also about question of control. I think the ultimate problem is about control. The United Nations, as we know, is not a scientific body. It is a political body. Unfortunately, over the last 20 to 25 years, the whole issue has been, I would say, squandered. They've been robbed by all these illegitimate interests. People who have other agendas. I mean, they are neither interested in environment, in my humble view, because all they care about is actually control and control, control, and then keep promoting about so-called renewable energy, like using more solar panels or wind farms, so on and so forth. Those are technology that has been known for at least 1,000 years. I mean, we try them. It doesn't work. This is why we need more electricity. We need electricity that is provided by any sources that we can get, the cheapest possible source, including coal, oil, or natural gas. This is the best and raw natural resources that we have, and we have to use it wisely. But now the whole issue has been flipped around by saying that this thing is so bad that these people are essentially calling for the poor people in Guatemala to use less electricity. I mean, unfortunately, we know that the only way we can care more about our environment is actually to be richer, to have more wealthy economic conditions, so that we can actually promote a lot of these good things that we can do about our own environment, right? So, and the science, I have to say, has been thoroughly corrupted. Corrupted in the sense that I give you a simple example. My own area of specialty, as I say, is about the sun. You ask yourself, this is just any average student in Guatemalan classes. Don't you think that one of the most important things that you should consider for studying climate and weather would be, let's say, how the Earth go around the sun, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Then you ask yourself the second question. Has the IPCC report and all those scientists, has it really included this effect correctly? I have to say that my humble view is that after 25 years of research, they have not. In fact, I just recently got an answer. If you want, of course, I'll share with you those emails from the lead author of the IPCC report and asking them the same question. How do you handle this, what we call the orbital forcing, which means the seasonal radiation coming into the Earth? And he says, well, some of the model included the effect, some they don't. Well, I say, well, now my question is even more specific. Do you include them in the past or do you include them in the future? Well, you say some of them we include in the past, some of them in the future we didn't consider them to be important. I say, how so? Don't you think that the climate was, the sun will never go away, right? It won't explode anytime soon. Don't you think that you should consider the seasonal radiation coming into the Earth system? They say no, that's not important because they're assuming that the sun will be doing like a sinusoid, cosine and sine curve, right? Everybody know that trigonometric function. But that is not true. The sun is actually changing in a very interesting way that you are actually expanding and actually contracting your spin wave actually. So it's a very interesting modulation. And those effects are the one that is very real because we can measure them. We can have evidence from, let's say, the ice core, from all these different evidence to try to confirm this effect to be real. They are real.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And IPCC tends to ignore them. And then IPCC tends to say that, well, those effects are small. But they haven't shown it to be small. In fact, it's the biggest signal you can find in the climate system. You can find it anywhere, actually. In the high latitude region, even in the tropics. Those things are important because most of the energy coming in through the tropics, right? And then they drive how the energy transfer from the tropic to the north and south, right? That's why we're supposed to consider. And IPCC failed in that respect, which is really a very strong criticism that is true. This is why I invite anyone who wants to learn more about this issue to be more open-minded and ask all these simple questions because a lot of this simple question has not been answered correctly. Shows how politics has become much more important than science, which is very strange from my own point of view because I think that we all can make any decision we wish, right? I mean, a lot of this can be personal, a lot of this can be a political decision, but then we have to be very careful. We have to base it on facts that is true, not facts that is driven out of fear, and because the whole instrument is actually fear, because it's a very strong human nature to be afraid of things, right? Because when our ancestors come along, I mean, we practically doesn't even know fire, right?
Yeah.
We don't know how it is. I mean, and this is where it's becoming very problematic, I see. So I hope that people in Guatemala would pay more attention to this, to at least resist the corruption coming from the UN, because maybe people think that, oh, Guatemala can benefit because, you know why? They're going to have this $100 billion per year fund.
Exactly.
Some
Yeah.
of the money can come to you. But I'm very sorry, these are dishonest money.
Yeah.
These are also money that will not last. What next if the money is not coming to you? That's why I always believe that you should always teach people how to actually produce the food rather than giving them food. It's like candy, it's too sweet.
Yes.
Yeah? You
Yeah.
better know how to make the candy yourself. This is where I really appreciate Rana's effort, because I read up about you. I met you in several conferences in America, in Chicago, and maybe in Washington, D.C., and so on and so forth, where I'm very happy to know that in this remote country like Guatemala, you can have a free market think tank who's actually at least understand about the principle of economy and
Exactly.
science. And what I appreciate is, of course, that you guys believe in science-based policy making, science-based, evidence-based sort of decision making, which is very, very important. This is the point that I think we ought to be stay strong. All I advise the people is that stay strong.
Yes.
I mean, because this is the only principle that cannot fail, because most of the principle is either based on some kind of fake persuasion, or, like fear is one of the most dangerous thing that people can try to put on you. Because it's no good telling people that you're gonna die tomorrow, you're gonna die tomorrow. Well, I'm still alive. All we have to do is take care of our environment, do the best we can,
Yeah.
right? That's my idea about this sort of thing. So
Definitely, it's so powerful arguments, Willie. Definitely, it's a very good explanation about the scientific arguments, and I like it so much your ethic approach. Because as you said, this kind of a lot of billions of dollars that eventually have come to Guatemala after COP 21 or in Paris, there is like a candy, and there is a dishonest money for the people. So definitely, Willie, you have covered all my questions that I have planned.
okay.
We appreciate so much your time and your advice to Rana. Rana, as you said, is an environmental think tank which promotes the idea about private property and free market, and definitely the correct science, the honest science. And we think that you are an honest science, Willie, so we support all your work, and you have all the support of Rana friends, actually, a lot of people are going to see this video, and I hope that they can give an opportunity that here to the skeptical scientifics around climate change. So thank you very much, Willie. Thank you for your time. I really want to say greetings to you and to your family, and maybe the next year we can see together in the non-intergovernmental panel about climate change meetings.
Yes, please. And I have to say that I truly appreciate your organization. Rana is indeed, like I say, the beacon of light in a lot of this darkness that I see around us. I mean, it is fairly important. So I really appreciate actually your educational system that leads you to who you are. I mean, I heard a lot of good things about your Francisco Mariquim universities there, which is really promoting some really really very good thinking, good studying, and this is the way the future ought to be, because this is the only way that we can make the world better. I mean, everybody has goodwill. In fact, I think, but the problem I felt that's very bad that I have to again say that this COP 21 is just essentially a waste. It's a waste of good human intention and so many resources that I think it's all turned into this sort of political positioning, which is very unhealthy. Because I have to say that the planet is very resilient to all sorts of changes. Atmospheric carbon dioxide definitely is not going to be the poison that is going to kill us all. I mean, I'm very sorry. The plant really prefer to have more carbon dioxide. I mean, people in Canada and US, actually even in Boston,
Yeah.
I mean, we really plant our winter vegetable in those environment where we need a lot of carbon dioxide so that we can actually have higher productivity, right? So we can have more bigger tomatoes and all that stuff that we need to use. I mean, why would they all of a sudden turn this carbon dioxide into something so bad? I mean, this is basically using political fact to correct scientific facts because this is the biological truism, which means it's a fact that you cannot change.
Yeah.
And this is why it's very, very dangerous to mix politics with science. And I really think that in fact, good science is equal to good environment and good social decision making. And that's what it is. Any other way is all false. And we ought to be resilient, to be really strong minded on this, not to be weak. Because the fact is that we as a community actually of so-called skeptic, I don't like that phrase too, because what do you mean? I mean, we are skeptical in nature, by nature, right?
Yeah.
Well, we are basically a large group of people all over the world. Like you've been to Germany. I mean, we have friends in Germany, we have friends in France, we have friends in Mexico, we have friends in all over